Hello everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited to bring to you my video response to Chanel Day's Tarot Tag Mid-Year Tarot Tag 2025. So this is a tag that Chanel has created a few years ago, and I've always loved participating in this because it is something that I naturally do in my practice every 6 months, I would say. So at the end of the year and mid-year, I would actually ask myself the same questions that she uses as prompts. And so it feels like it's a natural continuation of my practice to just bring it to you today in a video. So the first prompt, and as always, her video will be linked in the description box below if you want to watch it. I highly recommend it. She's always really lovely. And I'm always writing down the prompts as well, just in case you want to join in the fun. We're going to have a look at a few decks, so sit back and relax. So the first prompt is deck you've used the most so far in 2025. And I will have to go with a deck that I honestly, if you'd asked me last year if I was going to pick this deck for this prompt, I would have gone, no, not possible. But it's this one, it's the Lightseers Tarot by Chris and Donnelly. It is, and my incredulity will come from the fact that it's by no means a new deck. We all know this deck is very popular, very famous. This deck was actually introduced to the world of tarot a few years ago with a Kickstarter campaign. There were a few changes made to the deck, particularly concerning the Ten of Swords. And I know that now the indie deck that still has the original Ten of Swords sells for an incredible amount of money because it was quite different, but it was also very potent, very powerful card. I don't have that, unfortunately, but I still really love this deck. And the reason why this is by far the deck that I've used the most is because with my members, we do tarot deck studies. We pick a deck by voting. And I've had this deck on the candidate list for a while, and there's always been a lot of members saying, I would love to do a study of the Lightseers Tarot. And it won one of the voting sessions at a certain point because it was just after this book was released. So this is also by Chris, and she made this book and released it probably, I would say, about a year ago. And it's called The Tarot for Lightseers, and it is a book which is really, really nice. If you don't have it, I highly recommend it. It's very affordable now. I believe it's about 30 Australian dollars, but obviously you need to convert it to your own currency. It is a fantastic book because, as you can see, it really goes deeper than any companion book that I've ever seen, with maybe one or two exceptions on the deck itself. And it presents you with an incredible introspection on the motivation and the inspiration that guided Chrisanne when she was creating this deck. And as you see, for each and every card, and that's what I really love, there's a lot of symbolism and explanation of all of the symbols that you can find. And I found myself really doubting whenever I was starting with this deck. I found myself really doubting whether I could actually say that I know this deck, that I could actually admit to myself that looking at what Chrisanne was explaining here, I actually had no idea of many things that can be found on the cards themselves. And so when we've done the deck study of this deck, it was amazing because it was for me an opportunity to know more about the deck, but also to an exercise in being humble and understanding that no matter how much you think you know a deck, it is always amazing and incredible as an experience to get to know what the intention was of the author when she was creating the cards. So I'm just going to zoom in, but obviously everyone knows this deck. It is much beloved by the tarot community, and it has been for many, many years. So this is nothing new. There will be a new deck in this video that I will show with you, and I will actually do an unboxing because I haven't opened it yet, and it just arrived into my collection yesterday. So this is really well known. It's been modified. I have modified it. I have edged it in black because I really felt like it was kind of bringing up the colors somehow. And I have to admit that you will probably see that in a few of these cards. I didn't particularly do a good job because I use the Sharpie, and I find that whenever I use a Sharpie, it's not necessarily sticking to where it should stick to. So it just goes overboard. But I love it. I love the fact that even the mistakes that I've done in the modification of this deck, I actually do blend in with the deck itself. And so it feels like it's mine even more or to a deeper level. And so I was doing this deck study with my members, and then we did the live, and it was an incredible experience. But whenever I do a deck study, I really have to spend many, many hours with the decks that I'm studying. And I would say that overall, this was the one deck that we've studied together with my members that actually gave me most as an experience compared to others. And I was really surprised because I thought, as I said, I thought I knew this deck. And at the end of the day, whenever you find that there's an alchemical meaning to the symbols that I had missed, or even the hanged one, the card the hanged one, which obviously now I will not be able to find because when you want to find one specific card, there's not that, and I probably went through it. But yeah, there is this reference to Odin and the tree of life, and the fact that Odin tied himself up to the tree of life in Brazil for 9 days and 9 nights, because at the end of that was the sacrifice that awarded him the wisdom and the knowledge, and also the rune and the use of runic symbols, for him to have this wisdom and introspection into life. And that gave me this amazing way of reading the Hang One that still is with me to this day, because it is one of the things that I actually appreciate most when I'm doing a deck study. That you actually learn. And even if it's just 10 things, you do learn those 10 things about that deck that you didn't know before. And so this has been a really amazing deck. It's been a companion deck for a couple of months, but I have been using it every day, and I have rekindled my love for this deck, which is something I'm very, very appreciative and thankful for. Okay, so the next prompt is a new deck that came into your collection, and that's where I'm going to show you the unboxing of the deck. So this is the Magical Hours Tarot. This has been written by one of my favorite writers of all times. Seriously, I have admire this author for a while now, and every time that there is a deck that I know has been written by her, I just make sure that I get it, or at least I consider buying it, because she always surprises me. I love her writing style as well. It's Cecilia Lattari. She's Italian. This one has been illustrated by Fabiana Belmonte. I have seen, and it's been released by US Games. A very recent release. I was actually stoked by the fact that I was actually acquired this deck, because US Games, generally speaking, only releases their decks in Australia 3 months, if not longer, after they have been released in the US. So we have to wait, which is very painful. And this one has not been released in Australia yet, but through a loophole that I found on Amazon, I was able to get it. And so let's do this unboxing. And I know this deck because I've seen it presented in other channels, particularly in the last couple of weeks, I believe. So I know, if not all of the cards, I know many of the cards, and I already know that I really, really like them. But, it's always a bit of a surprise, because you never know if you're going to like a deck as much as you think you will when you see it portrayed in I don't know, a TikTok video or another YouTube video or an Instagram post, because the experience that you get out of a deck is only complete when you actually have the deck in your own hands and you confront yourself with everything that is part of appreciating and using a deck, including the tactile feel. How does it feel in your hands? Is it heavy? Is it sturdy? The cardstock, the finish, even the box, it comes with so many surprises that you cannot possibly know until you do have it in your hands. And I'm really, really excited about this. So this is the guidebook. Love the images, by the way. I already knew that I would have loved the images because I do appreciate Fabiana's art style. Fabiana is also Italian. I love the fact that we've got a full page with the card, as you do here. I don't know whether it's for the minor arcanas as well as the majors. No, it's not. It's okay. It's fine. It's not a deal breaker. You do have a smaller thumbprint when it comes to the minors, as you can see here, but it doesn't really matter because we have the cards, you know, and I always say this, we have the cards, it's fine. It is to me the impressions that I got from watching other videos. This deck is very mystical. And I know that this word sometimes doesn't mean too much, especially in our world. But it is the first adjective that comes to mind when I look at the cards. Very mystical, very cosmic. But at the same time, it does fit in really well with a lot of decks that I've acquired recently that are very surreal. Surreal in nature and in artwork, obviously, the artwork expressing that surreal nature. And is it going to give me the same kind of vibes as well? Because I obviously, when I acquire a deck, I am driven by a certain motivation. So is it a deck that I want to use for my members, for example? Is it a deck that I want to use in my own private practice? Is it something that will resonate with me because of certain feelings that I'm going through? Or is it something that is going to bring something completely new to my appreciation of tarot? Like in a couple of cases in the last couple of videos, I was really surprised by a couple of decks. And so I'm very excited to check this out and see how it works for me. So it comes with a box within a box, which I'm never really a fan of. But I have to say, one thing that I think US Games is doing well is reinforcing, as you can see, it's reinforcing the inside sleeve of boxes, because recently I've acquired a couple of decks that came with the up, let's say the top part of the bottom part completely ripped. It's fine. It just doesn't matter. The cards are fine. So, but you do tend to notice these kind of things, especially when it's a, let's say if it's a mass market deck, doesn't really matter. But when it is an indie deck, especially when it's a Kickstarter campaign, that cost a lot of money, you do kind of expect it to be perfect or as close to perfect as it can go. Love the fact that you have a card, the star card in specific, which if you have been watching my channel for any length of time, you will know that this is my favorite card in the tarot deck, regardless of the card. It's the meaning of the card that is my favorite. And because it is associated with Aquarius, which is my zodiac sign, of course, but it's also because it is the card of hope and guidance from your ancestors. And it's just something that I really take with me. And it's something that I reevaluate even more when going through the latest deck study that we're doing with my members is on the Fairy Tale Tarot, and I will talk about it later. And the star card from the Fairy Tale Tarot, I don't know if you know this, but it's a folklore tale from the Ojibwe Native American people. And it's about this star. It's an actual star that comes to Earth and becomes human. And it lives with a human, falls in love with a human, and they live happily ever after, but only up to a certain point, because a star is a star. And at a certain point, there is in this really beautiful tale, there's a moment in which she understands that it's time for her to go back to the sky. And it's a very sad moment for her family, but they understand. And by parting ways with them, she says, "I'll always be there for you in the sky. Just whenever you miss me, just look up at the sky and know that I'm looking down at you and I'm guiding you." And so this is really close to my heart, and I really believe in that. And I think that it doesn't take being a tarot collector or a tarot reader to believe in something like that, doesn't it? I mean, it's a very touching and emotional concept. The fact that we have all, at a certain point in our lives, we just go through some heartbreak because we lose someone we love, but thinking that they're still there with us and they'll always be there with us, guiding us from the sky. It's just really, really nice. So let's have a look. When it comes to the cardstock, it is glossy, or at least, yeah, it is fairly glossy, as you can see. I have already noticed that there's a couple of cards that have a little bit of a fraying at the edges here. Really not a big deal. I'm really not super picky when it comes to these kind of things. It's not edged, which is surprising because lately US Games has done a fantastic job in, edging the cards with really, really good colors, and but it's fine. It's okay. So very surreal. Oh, wow, look at this card. How beautiful this is. The Magician card. Wow, the High Priestess. Really beautiful. There's a few comments on, I believe it was a TikTok video that I was watching the other day, saying that they've done a fantastic job when it comes to diversity. And I'm really excited to see this in the cards. So the Chariot, well, very powerful, I would say already. But you do see what I mean. There's a lot of surrealist elements in the cards. That I always appreciate, because honestly, I do tend to go in phases. Like there will be phases in which I absolutely love collage decks. I really, really love animal-based decks or abstract decks. Or sometimes I really, oh, sorry, this is the devil. Wow, sorry, I just had to stop because I love this card. And I don't often say that about a devil card in a deck. Do you know what I mean? It's not my favorite card when it comes to the meaning. But I love this deck. It's a devil that is actually playing violin. And it's so focused and so engrossed in what they're doing. They have their eyes closed. I don't know if you can tell here. I have to zoom in. And there's two characters here just looking up and listening to the music and being completely captivated by the music. I love this card. I really, really like it. It resonates so much. And the tower, the star card, we've seen it before, and the moon. By the way, these are the bags, which are really, really gorgeous. It speaks to me of a lot of autumn-related vibes. And we in Australia now, we are in autumn. We're making our way towards winter. The 1st of June will be winter for us. So obviously it does feel like it's got a lot in common with these vibes. I love this card as well, the sun card with this really big eye. And as you know, I'm not a huge fan of really big eyes on cards, but this one I actually find it um, quite nice, I would say. And Judgment and the Word card. And obviously we're moving on to the Suit of Wands. So I'm not going to show you all of the cards. Because I just have so many other decks to show you today, but I just really wanted to go through at least some and, and tell you my reactions and tell you what I think about them. And so far, the experience has been great. I really like it. So we're moving on to the Suit of Pentacles here. Really, really nice. And I believe that yes, most likely, the image on the box is from the Suit of Pentacles. Yes, it's this one here. It is very, very sweet. It speaks of tenderness and calm and beauty at the same time. And it's the Nine of Pentacles, so I really appreciate that. There is really a lot of tenderness, a lot of almost affection, I would say, coming out as feelings, as vibes, coming out of this card. Really stunning, absolutely stunning deck. Wow, oh, look at the King of Pentacles. So powerful, really, really powerful. And we're moving on to the Suit of Cups. Very nice as well. Look at the Four of Cups. How amazing is this? I would say this deck will pair up, I think, really nicely with an indie deck, an indie oracle deck, which is called Elizabeth on Earth. There's 3 iterations of the deck, and I believe that it will pair really nicely with this one because it does feel like the characters have the same kind of physiognomy, and they look very similar. Haven't found a lot of body shape diversity so far. I would have loved to see that, and also age diversity. I have to say, all of these characters look very young, but we do have skin color diversity, not a lot of maybe also ability. But it doesn't matter because it needs to work for you. It needs to work for you. So is this deck resonating for me? And that's the main question that I'm asking myself. So we're moving on to the Suit of Swords. Really beautiful. The Three of Swords is still not my favorite. Okay, the concept of the heart that has been pierced by three swords is not my favorite, as you know. I do tend to read the card, the Three of Swords, as um, the overwhelm of the mind, which can, sometimes overflow into the heart. Of course, it can. I mean, we're not made of pieces that are not connected. So our mind is always connected to our heart, and vice versa. Loving this Four of Swords as well. And the Five of Swords, that's really interesting. See, it would be fantastic for me to go through the guidebook and have a read and try and understand. Oh, okay, this Nine of Swords speaks to me of incubus, that let's say folk tale that says that whenever you have sleep paralysis, your mind tries to find, well, it's the trance state between wake and dream, in which your brain is half awake and is trying to understand what your body is going through, and so it makes up stuff. And so you imagine, when you have sleep paralysis, you imagine having someone sitting on your chest and blocking you and stopping you from moving. And so the mind created this idea of the incubus. Okay, there is a little bit of blood. I don't like to see blood in the Ten of Swords, but I understand it. When someone is being stabbed 10 times in the back, there will be blood. There will be blood. So fine. Beautiful, really gorgeous Page of Swords and Knight of Swords. And of course, I'm going to have a look at the Queen of Swords because it's my significator, at least part of it. And it reminds me of a very specific scene from Pan's Labyrinth. I talk about that movie a lot. It's by Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorite movie directors and creators, because he's a creator. He does create worlds, and there are, more often than not, worlds that are magical in nature. And so there's a scene in which there is a character that is sitting at the banquet, and they're covering their eyes with their hands, but they do have eyes in their hands, exactly like in this card. And for this reason, whenever there is a character that looks like this, it does remind me of that movie. And there is another deck that has this kind of setup in more than one card. And it is the Blood Moon Tarot. And I call that deck my Pan's Labyrinth deck because it is reminding me of that. More than other decks. King of Swords. So, as I said, this is very new to my collection, just came in yesterday. Really looking forward to work with this deck. I already think that I love it, but I always need to, work with it a little bit just to make sure. So the next prompt is a deck that could be better, and I had to go with this deck. So, but hear me out, because it's a bit complex to explain. So this is the Fairy Tale Tarot by Lisa Hunt. This is, however, the Spanish edition that was printed many years ago, and it was a literal translation of the original Fairy Tale Tarot when it was published years ago, the one that came with an actual companion book. I know that there is the reprint of this deck that is now being sold, available, and I have heard, I don't have that edition. I have asked, because this is the deck that we're studying with my members now, and I have asked some of my members, the ones that have the most recent print, if it comes with the same type of information when you look at the guidebook, and they all said no. And one of my members have the original edition from years ago in English, and so she kindly offered to help me out, because this is the work that I'm doing for this deck study is just hours, takes hours and hours, because I'm reading it in, obviously I'm going through all of the cards and I'm reading them in Spanish. This is the Spanish translation. Then I'm trying to find out what that specific fairy tale is. I am reading the fairy tale in full, because these ones are just, let's say, let's say, summaries of those tales. And then I'm summarizing that in English, and I'm producing these PDF files, and then I share with my members and we go through them in the videos. But it's not always easy, because I would say, and this is the reason why this is the answer to my prompt, to the prompt deck that could be better. I really believe that on the one hand, in the reprint, US Games should have given you the possibility to read just as much information as we did have in the original one. And to my knowledge, for what I'm being told, it's not. It's just a slightly deeper version of a little white book, but it doesn't actually tell you the story. And on the other hand, there's also something that I need to say about these cards. I love Lisa Hunt's work, really do. I think she's done a fantastic job in many, many decks. My favorite is the Ghosts and Spirits Tarot, because simply it just resonates with me a lot more. But I am in love with fairy tales, always been, always will be. I also love the ones that come from Japan. So obviously, focusing on the world of yokai. Yokai are the supernatural beings of Japan. I'm just going to briefly show you the cards, and the cards are not different. So this is the Spanish edition. Obviously, the titles will be different because they will be in Spanish, but the cards, that the artwork is the same. And so I was saying I really love fairy tales. I've always been enamored with being a storyteller. I am a storyteller myself. I wrote 4 books, and I published one, and one is hopefully, fingers crossed, is going to be published starting from September onwards on Substack. So, and the first one is already published for free. So you can read my first book, which is a thriller, on Substack completely for free. And because I received so much encouragement, from everyone who was reading it, so you do have statistics from Substack, and I got 400 every month. 400 people were reading my book, and it was just really amazing for me. And so I decided to publish the second one on Substack for free. I'm not making any money; it's completely free. But it means a lot to me that people are reading what I'm writing, and they're actually feeling like they're taking part in the story, and they're sending me emails and saying, "I really like this," or "I don't think that was very good," or I really appreciate that. So I love fairy tales, and I think that she's done a fantastic job. However, there is something I have to say. And it's impossible to do a better job than this. I think she's done as good a job as she could do. But sometimes, in order to, let's say, associate the fairy tale in specific and the tarot card, she had to focus on one element of that fairy tale that was not the main element of the fairy tale. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I will look at stories, and maybe they resonate with me for a different reason other than the King of Cups. Or the 4 of Cups. And I'm just asking myself, how much of a continuity can you even get between the world of fairy tales and tarot? Because tarot has its own world, and the meanings are um, self-standing. And so whenever you try and associate, even when you try and associate a thematic text, like for example, an animal-based deck, there's so many animal-based decks recently. But I recently acquired the Raven's Prophecy by Maggie Stiefvater, and obviously she doesn't even try, and it wasn't her intention, but she doesn't even try to show you the images as per what a RWS clone would be. She based her deck on her books. She's a writer, and she did a great job. And but there is no continuity, and it's fine as long as you know that. And so when you're looking at this tarot, you kind of ask yourself, okay, would that be a different fairy tale that would have resonated with me a lot more when talking about this specific card? And in many cases, that is so, for me at least. And so it's funny because, I find myself doing these videos with my members, and sometimes I have to rein myself in, as in I have to stop myself from saying, well, I don't agree with this, but it's the beauty of tarot. We have we had the possibility to discuss this. We had the possibility to say, I think that she's done a fantastic job about this, but maybe a different card. I would have preferred a different fairy tale. But then again, as I explained, the fairy tale chosen for the star card is the Ojibwe Star Maiden tale, and as I said, that works wonders. It's perfect for the star card. So that was a deck that I think, let's say, from a point of view of the publisher, it could have been a better deck, because I believe that they should have made a bigger book with all of the information that was contained in the first edition. That's all I'm saying. So the next prompt is the biggest surprise of 2025, and this, I did not have 1 second of hesitation in choosing this deck. This is the Cries of the Souls Oracle by Isabel Surf, illustrated by Daphna Sabine. This is a deck that has been released probably a couple of months ago by Rockpool. And it is a twin deck, let's say, of the voices of the souls, which I don't have, but I'm really looking forward to acquire. It is a deck that, it is the biggest surprise, because what happened was that I went to the Mind Body Spirit Sydney, and I went to the Rockpool stand, and as they always do within the context of these festivals, they really discount their decks. And so I was able to get this one for only 20 Australian dollars, which is about 12 and a half US dollars, even $12. And so obviously I was very happy to get a bargain on this deck, even though I wasn't entirely sure about it because of the what limited knowledge I had about the cards. And I was looking at the cards, and I was reading, and they always open up a deck for you to check. So obviously I was able to see all of the cards, and I thought to myself, it's very basic, it's very minimalist. Very, very basic. It looks like these looks like maybe clipboard art, as in, sometimes when you're making a presentation and you find these almost stamp-like images, and I'm fine with it, but I was just saying, okay, it's one of those decks, is fine. Maybe it will resonate, maybe I will find a way to pair it up. I do like the fact that it is very limited in color palette, which means that I actually tried it out, for example, with the Poesis Oracle, so just to try those two together. But then I realized and I believe that I was filming a video, I was filming the first impression of this deck, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let's actually take a moment here and read what the cards actually say. And you read it and you go, okay, well, the image is very powerful here, and the title is Rejection. Okay, well, that shadow work, yeah, I'm on board. And then you go, I open myself up with assurance to the outside world. And you think, oh, well, that's a positive take on that rejection, because, you go, okay, well, the keyword rejection, not necessarily the most positive one you can have out of a card. But then you say, oh, I open myself up with assurance to the outside world. So you're trusting yourself, you're trusting the world. It's fine. And then, just for kicks, I was like, oh, let's have a look at what the guidebook says for whatever card it was that I was looking at. And you can do it with literally any of these cards, and you will have the same double take on the card, because when you read it, it's just going to blow your mind. If you don't have this deck, trust me, this is the most powerful. And I know that I'm going to say something that is going to sound explosive. This is, in my entire collection, the most powerful shadow work deck that I've got. And yes, I stick to that. I stand to what I said. It is incredible. So let me just read a couple of sentences out of the guidebook. This is what will blow your mind. So you're kind of at a point in which you say, oh, okay, well, it's asking you to be positive. Let's have a look at what the guidebook says. And it goes, if I'm here, it indicates that your childhood wasn't very tender. Boom. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my goodness. Okay, well, let's move on. Yeah, I already feel like I need to take 5 minutes and do a chanting or a mantra, or just try and relax and do some meditation here. But sure, move on. Even if some people deny your feelings now, I am the pain of your trauma, and have been with you ever since you were made to feel denigrated disdained, and rejected. Do you see what I mean? There is such a disconnect, and it's so explosive between the sentence that is at the bottom of the card itself and what it actually says on the guidebook. And this, I kid you not, this guidebook makes me cry every single time. And I don't mean to say that to do good shadow work you need to cry. This is just my emotional response, and it's my vagus nerve, it's my nervous system that responds this way whenever I feel safe enough that I can cry, generally speaking when I'm by myself. But it is something that offers you so much to work on, and so many epiphanies and revelations about yourself, the way in which you relate to the world through these cards. And I would go as far as to say that I probably just use the cards as in I pull a card and I base my reading on that card from the guidebook, and I don't necessarily need the card anymore, because what stays with me is a few of these sentences that I will copy word by word in my journal, and I would just meditate on them. When I am with you, I forge an impenetrable shell around you so that nothing from the outside can reach in and you withdraw into yourself. I take up so much room that you can't let in any new sources of potential suffering, and you think the outside world is and always will be disappointing. Should I need to go on? Because I don't think I can. These words, they may not resonate with everyone. Not everyone had a painful childhood or a traumatic one, but I believe that tarot really helps you out. Tarot and Oracle really help you out when you have, and it is one of the most powerful tools. And I'm someone who's been in therapy for 12 years. 12 years of my life I've been in therapy to try and dissect and process grief and trauma and all these really heavy things. And still, and I spent thousands, because therapy is not cheap, but you don't want it to be because you want someone really good. But at the end of the day, if I had this deck, I don't know if I had needed as many years of therapy. I know that it's an explosive sentence. Take with you what you need and discard the rest. But this, to be a deck that I paid $20 for, $20 Australian, so about 12 US, with all the thousands of dollars that I spent on therapy, it makes you think. It makes you think. So this was by far the biggest surprise of the year. So the next prompt is a deck crush, a deck I have a crush on, and I have to go with the Unveiled Tarot. This is by Jessie Norrigan, has been, and there's a forward by Mike Mignola. It has been released by Liminal 11 or Sterling Ethos as well. I believe Liminal 11 is based in UK, and Sterling Ethos is based in New York. In any case, this is a deck that can be very affordable. I also found it on sale, so I was very happy about that. If you have any other deck by Liminal 11, you will know how the box works, which is not exactly my favorite, but then again, it is their signature box, so I'm on board with that. And well, I would have to say, I actually filmed a walkthrough of this deck, if you can believe it, because I don't normally do that. I don't normally do that because I just generally speaking, my videos tend to be very long anyway, and I can never really push myself or discipline myself enough to film an entire walkthrough of an entire deck within 2 hours. And so I'm like, no one is going to watch a video that goes on for 2 hours. But I did it for this deck in specific because I feel like this is a deck that has shocked me so much in so many ways, from so many cards. And I do have a crush on it because it is just absolutely fantastic. So you will notice that it does have something very specific. So there is a very specific setup to the cards and the images. So you will see that there's two frames, right? There's an external frame, or what we would normally see as the picture itself, the image itself. And then there's an inside one that presents you with an alternative take on the card itself. So you might look at this Ten of Pentacles here, and you see this character. She's walking down a street, and I don't necessarily recognize it, but it looks like it's a narrow alley, and she's walking down and she's by herself. And you think, okay, well, the Ten of Pentacles doesn't necessarily point to that. It is actually, by reading sequentially like I do like to read it as the card that comes after the Nine of Pentacles, and the Nine of Pentacles tells you that, yes, you have received a windfall. Bask on the light for a while and enjoy the fruit of your labor, but just remember that it is not complete unless you actually share it with the community. So that is the meaning of the Ten of Pentacles for me. And this card, if you just look at the what goes on the image, you wouldn't really think of that. But then you look at the inside, and you see all these people, and they look like they are spectators, and they are looking at what you're doing, but they are behind you. And so it feels like you are leading them. You're just going down this road, and you think to yourself, I am content with what I have. I am content with what I'm doing and what I've achieved in life. But I'm not alone. There is no man is an island. That there's so many protagonists to the story. They're just not in the forefront of the story. They're there with me, and I will always carry them with me. And you will see this in each and every one of these cards. And I really love, some of them are just brilliant. And I remember my reaction when I unboxed this deck, when I saw the Magician for the first time, because I was like, oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's cool. It's an Austrian landing on the moon, blah blah blah. And inside you've got an actual magician that is doing the trick with the cup and the ball here. But then I saw this and I thought to myself, but hang on a second, because I've been working in a production, video production, film production, in documentary. Actually, I was a producer of a documentary here in Australia, and so I know very well what this means. This is the tape that you put on the floor for the actors or the person who's on camera to know where they need to stand. And so I was like, it looks like that. Do they mean to say that the landing on the moon was actually filmed, was actually fake? And then you look at the side here and you see that this is actually behind the stage. And that blew my mind. I was like, I'm really liking this deck. I think that it's got so much more to tell us about the cards. And the cocktails, the temperance card, it does speak about the movement of the water from one cup to the other, which is pretty much spot on when you think about what a barista, is doing when making a cocktail, for example. So this card really gets me every time. It's the devil card. Again, I seem to have this connection with the devil in the last couple of months, and maybe it's telling me something, but every time I pull, it's not a stalker card, but every time I pull a devil card, it really resonates with me. I don't know why. But in any case, you can see here, it tells you that there is this happy family, but actually, if you look closer, you'll see it's not really that happy. And there is this sense of doom, there's this sense of fire and brimstone, and we realize that what looks like a smile may actually be a mask. And so I just have such a huge crush on this deck. It is really well thought. I would say many of these cards, perhaps not all of them, but let's say 90% of these cards really give me pause, and they make me think, and they make me ponder what is going on in the card and how do I relate to this. And this is the Four of Cups, and it's someone who's at the airport, and you can see that there's someone lining up to check in, and there's a bar here, and someone with a suitcase. So it's an airport or maybe a station, but in any case, it points to the departure. I believe it's an airport because it does have shows you the plane here. But she's drowning. She's really struggling to stay afloat in the inner in a frame. Um, and so this is an amazing card because it really resonates so much for me. I've been traveling so much in my life. I've been taking so many planes, and more often than not, I'm happy to take a plane because I'm going somewhere. But sometimes I did find myself in this kind of situation in which I was actually kind of struggling to stay afloat, and you know, trying to catch up on what my feelings were. So I really love this deck. As I said, really, really amazing, unique. Not many decks in the last 10 years that really shocked me as much as this one did and still does. I highly recommend it. As I said, mass market deck, very easy to find, very affordable. The Queen of Swords is probably my favorite card because I had such high hopes for it and because it is my significator. And I was looking at it and at first I didn't connect it. But have you noticed this is in a tarot deck that is called the Unveiled Tarot? The Queen of Swords is the only character that is actually veiled. And so I love that because it shows me that it is the opposite of what I think about when I think about the Queen of Swords. She's the one that sees through bullshit. She's the one that sees through everything. She's the one that sees the black and the white, but she's also the one that chooses to focus on the gray. And there is that sense of air because obviously Suto Swords is Suto air, but at the same time, there is this sense of water and the nurturing side that even a Queen of Swords can have, except that for the Queen of Swords, it's always a choice. I I don't know. I don't know what else to say to convince you to get this deck. If you have the means, if you want another deck, if you want a deck that will make you think, because this is an amazing, really, truly amazing deck. And I'm so very grateful that it has been created and that it's now in my collection. So the next prompt is a favorite single tarot card from a deck. So I have cheated. Sorry, I had to cheat because I just recently acquired this deck, which is not a tarot deck. Sorry about that. It's an oracle deck. It's a dream song oracle. This has been written by the super duper prolific Angie Sullins, and the artwork is by Marta Orlowska. It is another mass market deck released by US Games, and I have to say, this is an amazing deck. Again, very surreal. The images here are fantastic. Really, really love them. And I'm thinking I'm probably going to try and pair it up with the Magical Hours Tarot because I do believe that there's a lot of similarities here. What shocks me about this deck is that it's not one of the many. The sentences that you find at the bottom of the cards are absolutely amazing. They really give you food for thought. It really shocks you. It's something that does leave a mark when you use it for meditation and this type of work. But because the prompt is about just one card and specific, I'm not going to show you the whole deck. I'm just going to show you the card that I've chosen because it is a card that honestly is very attractive to me. It really speaks to me. It called my attention ever since I saw it the first time for a number of reasons. So basically, yeah, it's the title is Go Dark, right? So Go Dark. So obviously we know that it's something that has to deal with shadow work and embracing that. And I love the card because let me just zoom in further because I really want you to see it, and it's just a tiny detail. So as you can see here, really beautiful, very beautiful colors, which you can say for all of the other cards of this deck. But as you can see here, the card is actually pulling a curtain aside. And behind the curtain, what we see is the night sky. And so that really means a lot to me because it is the whole thing about doing shadow work. You could summarize it or you could visualize it this way. And so I was very curious and I was going through the guidebook for other cards as well. And then I saw this one and I went straight to this. And I'm just going to read quickly from it. Your darkness is not your enemy. That already, you know, that is a sentence that really draws you in. It can seem scary, but it's where new life grows and develops. You do too. This moment calls you to be willing to be with your own darkness. It asks you to embrace your dark as your beloved ally. Cradle your uncertainty. The dark night of the soul holds secrets for you that you wouldn't be able to see in the brightness of glaring certainty. Poet Mary Oliver spoke about a box of darkness as a priceless gift in her life. When the dark surrounds us, we come to know ourselves as the light. This sentence really, I think that it opened up a window into a whole different world for me. It is entirely true. I don't know whether I do associate with the type of practice that I've got that I focus on when I do shadow work, but it is something that will be part of my shadow work from now on. Understanding that when you are in darkness, when dark surrounds us, we know ourselves as the light. We are the light. That is incredibly uplifting. It is incredibly deep. It doesn't look like it. There's a lot. It's just one paragraph, but trust me, it does hit you in the right place. Many of these cards do. And then it says chaos, crisis, and suffering want to gift you a new understanding of who you really are beyond who you always thought yourself to be. That really blew my mind, and I'm very grateful to this deck for giving me the possibility to focus on this, to understand this within myself. So fantastic card. The next prompt is a deck that makes you happy, and I had to go with the Westwood Tarot by Yasmin Westwood. This has been written by Calliope, and it has been released by Red Feather. It's a deck from a few months ago, and truth be told, it's probably a deck from the last months of 2024, but I did acquire it only in 2025, and originally did not want this deck. I had a look at it, and I was like, oh, it's too magical for me. It wouldn't resonate. It's too fancy. There's a number of reasons why I was like, I'm not going to buy this deck, and then I finally did. And oh my goodness, I am happy that I finally purchased it, because this deck, as the prompt says, it just makes me happy. It makes me really happy. I don't know whether it's the atmosphere. There's all lights here that look like stars, and so somehow it feels like you're looking into images surrounded by stars or by magic or by sparks. At the same time, it is based on animals, but not just animals. It's actually based on steampunk animals. So it is animals dressed with steampunk items, such as the classic steampunk goggles and stuff like that. And it took me a while, admittedly, it took me a while for me to understand that. But I was like, oh, this one looks like a steampunk kind of attire. Oh, this one too. Hey, but this one as well. And I was like, yeah, maybe it's a theme. So I should probably read more out of the guidebook before I make this kind of observation. But in any case, I just love it so much now. I really like to use it as well, which is not something that I always say about a deck. I really like to use it for divination readings. And again, it's something that I really appreciate, because it's not always the case. Sometimes I will acquire a deck that speaks to me, and I would use for a very specific part of my practice. But when it comes to readings, I'm very peculiar for decks. It's also because I do readings for clients and for my members, and I am I take that very seriously, and as much of the professional capacity as I can. And so I really, whenever I receive a question, from my members, I would really look for a deck that best suits that question. And so you can't just use any deck for any type of reading. So at least that's my experience. Let's say it's my take on it. But I really love using it for readings. So I'm still focusing on the Devil card here. It's just such an amazing card, this one as well. Yeah, so I love this deck. It makes me happy. I mean, how can you not be happy when you look at an orangutan dressed like that with this hat, beret, more than a hat, and there's so many elements here that really make my heart sing, and I'm always very grateful if a deck does that to me. It's almost the equivalent to me as reading a book that really gives me joy. It's the same thing. I'll be forever grateful. This is an amazing deck, and I'm so very happy that I convinced myself to buy this one because originally, as I said, I wasn't interested. But that also shows me that sometimes I should probably get out of my comfort zone and, get that deck that I think that I will never like. And sometimes I will not like them, and that's okay. But this one was such a win for me, and I'm really, really happy that I've got it. So the next prompt is a great guidebook. So I will have to go with this deck that I talked about recently. This is the Unfinished Business Tarot, a ghostly story. Sorry, a ghostly tarot by MJ Cullinane. So I've been showing this deck in one of my recent new acquisitions video, and I received a couple of questions of people asking where can they purchase it. Unfortunately, this deck is out of print at the moment. It is an indie deck, and you can, let's say, if you know MJ, she has a fantastic website. She's very prolific. She's always producing decks. It's amazing, amazing. But I would say, yes, unfortunately, it is out of print. But you never know, because with MJ, sometimes there will be Hay House just, signing a contract and picking up one of her decks to go mass market. So if there's enough of us that show interest for this deck, maybe it will be released mass market. I don't know. I really don't. This is a deck that I would go as far as to say that it's probably amongst the decks that I acquired in the first 6 months of this year, is probably the one that has the best guidebook. And I'm actually studying it myself. This is obviously Unfinished Business is related to ghost. We know that, and there will be stories, ghost stories, or stories about the characters that are depicted on the cards, which is not very uncommon. I mean, it is something that pretty much any kind of tarot deck with a theme that is not necessarily an RWS clone would just show you a character in a card, and they will tell you their story. This is a really beautiful deck, by the way. I don't have all of MJ's decks. I do have the Forhaxa because I believe it's just absolutely stunning. Another deck that I've got is the Urban Crow Oracle because I really love it. Another deck that I used to have, but I had to rehome, was the Guardian of the Night. And the reason why I rehomed it was that there was one card in particular that was very triggering for me, to the point that I always felt very uncomfortable. It's nobody's fault. It's something very personal. It might be a fantastic deck for everyone. And I did like all of the other 77 cards of the deck. It's just that when there is that one card that really pushes me away, I just don't want it to just stay there and gather dust. It's a mass market deck anyway. If I want to reacquire, I can. It's not going to be particularly difficult to find it. But in any case, I just wanted to show you the guidebook, and I was talking about it in one of a lovely subscriber was like, just have a look at the guidebook because, and she knows me, and she knows that I love guidebooks, and she was like mentioning this and saying it's very good, and so I did, and I would just have to agree 100%. I mean, when you look at it, there's no thumbprints, there's no artwork, and you don't see the cards, and it's just word. Which is what we need anyway, right? So it's a guidebook. So obviously, but the stories, how should I say this? The stories that are represented in the guidebook and obviously depicted on the cards are I've read all of them, and I would say most of them are so very deeply touching and so very spot on for the card that they represent in the tarot, which is not that easy. We were talking about the fairy tale tarot earlier, and that was not always the case, but in this case it is. That's one of the reasons why I really hope that they will release in mass market, because I hope that there will be more people approaching this deck. Because you start with the story behind the card and the image that you see, and then there will be a tie to the card that it represents. So this is the Three of Wands, and it will tell you what the general message of the Three of Wands is. So if you just look for a little white book kind of information, you still have it, but it is so much more interesting, just reading these stories. And one thing when I was studying English literature, and I think that everyone studies that when you study English lit, is the anthology of Spoon River. That was one of my favorite books of all time. I was studying it when I was studying English and English Lit, when my English wasn't good enough to understand, because obviously it's written in older kind of English and also in a poetic form. And for me, it was very difficult. But I was studying that book with an anthology that was explaining all of the stories, and it resonated so much, and I loved it so much, and I loved all of the stories so much, that I forced myself to really go deeper into my knowledge of English, of the language, and appreciate, in order to appreciate it even more. And to this day, it's probably one of my favorite books of all times, of that particular kind of form, let's say. This one, it's not difficult to read, not for me either, but also if you're ESL like me, English as a second language, it is not difficult to read. So I would highly recommend it, if you can find it, obviously, because it is out of print, unfortunately. And I do hope that if it goes mass market, they do print all of it, because sometimes they have to make choices when it comes to the economy of the guidebooks. Fair enough. But it is such an amazing deck. I really, really love the guidebook, and I'm very, very happy to say, yeah, best guidebook of all of the decks that I've acquired this year by far. So the next prompt is, which deck hasn't been used yet, or rarely, but you want to work with this year? And it's another recent deck, and that's the main reason why it hasn't been used a lot, though I have studied it a little bit when it comes to the guidebook. This is an amazing deck. Unfortunately, it's an Italian deck. I say unfortunately because this particular publisher, the Vecchi, is not well known for translating decks. Unfortunately, they don't get picked up by US Games or your Hay House or other English publishers. Unfortunately, they just stay in Italian. So it's a pity, because I believe it's a fantastic deck. So it's called Le Carte Divinatorie dei Sogni, so the dream divination cards, and it's by Laura Tuan, which is very prolific in particular with this publisher, the Vecchi. I do have a tarot deck that is probably over 20 years old that I've acquired. It's a Celtic deck made by her. This one it brings a lot of psychology and dream interpretation into the cards, so much so that I would probably say, if you're interested in psychology like I have been my entire life, you would feel like you want to dust off your books by Jung and Freud and others that are relevant to the dream interpretation, because it is focusing a lot on that, to the point that it does actually show a few cards with those incredibly important minds of dream interpretation, the ones that actually considered dreams as the expression of the subconscious and the way in which we process certain things, or our subconscious process certain things. So the guidebook is amazing. So just to give you an idea, you have obviously the name of the card, and it's mostly related to the symbols. So if you do dream about a house, so casa is a house or home as well. So if you do dream about this, it tells you, well, it describes a little bit the way in which you should identify the house, as in it could be a building, it could be a building that reminds you of your childhood, and so on and so forth. And then it gives you a fair bit of keywords, and then it tells you about the myth. So the part that says here myth is incredible, because it also gives you a lot to do with, let's say, the origin of the word, and the origin of the symbols associated, or the keywords associated with the symbol of the house, which is always interesting, of course. Then it talks about the symbol itself, and then it gives you the psychological meaning of that symbol. Then it tells you what it calls the present situation of the dreamer. So yourself, you have had this dream, and what your present situation is. And then it gives you also the possibility to focus on the divinatory meaning upright and reversed of this card. So this is interesting because it gives you the possibility to use this deck as an oracle deck, which is always nice, you know. And then it also gives an indication of time frame and the combination with other cards. For example, if you do 3, 4, 5 cards spread, it gives you a few combinations and how to read them. And I had the opportunity to do a few spreads with this deck with the combinations, and I read about them, and it reads very similar to a Lenormand. If you know Lenormand, you will know what I mean. And then it also gives you the numbers that you need to play at Lotto. So I don't know whether this is a tradition around the world, to be honest with you, but in Italy we are obsessed with dreams and numbers because you know, you will have a dream and there will be tradition telling you which number to play at the lotto or to put some money on at the lotto, you know, represented by the dream you had. So a house is associated with the number 5 and the number 71. And then it gives you also the message from the card, which is really, really good, actually. I wish they had put this at the beginning, but it's fine. So as you can see, it's so much that comes with one card. It's 3 full pages, and it really helps you understand how you would best relate to the card, or you will best work with the deck. And aside from that, it's also really beautiful. I mean, obviously that is personal, that is something subjective, so you might not like the aesthetics of the deck. I personally really love it. I love the colors, I love the graphics, I love really, really beautiful images here. And as I was saying, Atla here, for example, all of the cards that are yellow, so there's a lot more, but of course, when I'm looking for them, I can't find them. So they're all based on there you got Freud and Lang and Jung at a certain point as well. Lacan. Okay, I don't want to show Jung found it finally. So it's interesting because it also gives you a very, let's say, targeted way to look at the vast work of these philosophers and psychiatrists and scientists, because Jung has been writing about a lot of things, obviously, but it gives you, you know, it says here in the keywords, it says principles, roots, archetypes, and energies, and so you immediately, or at least by what I've studied about Jung, I immediately understand where I should focus on if I want to go back to his books or the books that I've studied about him, in order to be able to connect these keywords to what I'm supposed to study, let's say. So it is really interesting, and it offers so much that I'm just really, really excited about having the opportunity to use this deck. And some of these cards are tackling some very poignant symbols in a dream. You know, the abandonment, the fall, or the flight, and stuff like that. It goes really deep. I recommend it, but again, it is in Italian, and I don't think it is going to be translated, unfortunately, but you never know. And nowadays, honestly, with Google Translate, you can just point your camera and you translate on the go, so you can use it. I realized that I skipped a prompt, and it's what deck do you want by the end of the year? It's definitely going to be the Yokai Oracle. Obviously, I don't have it. It hasn't been released yet. It will be released hopefully on time for Halloween. I love yokai culture. I love supernatural beings from Japan, Japanese folklore. I do have at least 5 or 6 decks based on yokai. And I would say that when it comes to oracle decks, the one that I have is the French deck, which is called Oracle de Camille et Yokai, which only comes with the name of the yokai on the cards, and you have to go into the guidebook in order to read the keywords. So I'm happy to say that this yokai oracle will actually have keywords on the cards. And you know what? That makes me so excited. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. So the next prompt is favorite video you've made or seen. I don't have a favorite video. I love watching. I consume a lot of content on YouTube. I spend hours watching videos on you, not just on, let's say, tarot, but also on books. For example, booktube is one of my favorite categories. On films, for example, I do consume a lot of, watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of TV shows, I read a lot of books, I buy a lot of tarot decks. So obviously when there's the opportunity to have recommendations done by the experts, I will watch some videos. And I would say this is, I was thinking about, there is one favorite one, and I was thinking, oh, I love them all. And so this is my ode of love and recognition and gratitude towards YouTube, because I had the possibility, by having my own channel, to get in touch with some amazing people, really fantastic, lovely people that became friends. And B, it also gives me the possibility to know about things that are out there in the world, about new books and new tarot decks and new movies that I might want to watch. And I also have the possibility to relate to someone who I will never have the possibility to meet, most likely, and so I'm very grateful for that, because it's an amazing thing, and I really think that it's just absolutely fantastic. It's probably my favorite website. YouTube is my favorite website. Okay, so the last prompt, and thank you so much if you're still here, you're a trooper. I do tend to chat a lot. Pull a card for next 6 months, or pick a card whose energy you want to bring into the next 6 months. So I want, the saying, when you can't beat them, join them. It is a saying. I know it is. I will have to go with a tarot deck I'm going to show you. Is this one here. This is the Way Seeker's Tarot by NDR, written by Anna Jajewski. So sorry, I'm probably butchering the name. I apologize for that. This is a deck that I've acquired recently, and I remember I was going through the cards, and I was filming this video, and I was making a pairing with the Oracle of Oddities. And by the way, just received the news yesterday, the Oracle of Oddities is going to be reprinted, so you will be able to acquire it. Still in the deck, but you'll still be able to acquire it if you so wish. And so I found the Lover's card and the Devil card paired up with the same card, the Knowledge card, and that really blew my mind. And I do think that, I don't know whether I can say that the Devil card is stalking me right now. I won't go as far as to say that, but what I do recognize is that there is a lot that I can learn from the Devil. So together with my members, we're doing this fantastic study of the cards for our Read Like a Pro video series. And we're focusing on all of those things that normal guidebook would not necessarily tell you, because they're a bit deeper. We're also focusing on many, many disciplines that have been throughout the years associated with tarot, which I'm talking about alchemy, I'm talking about astrology, I'm talking about numerology, I'm talking about reading with a sequential method, I'm talking about all of these kind of things, Kabbalah, I'm talking about all of these kind of things that are incredibly interesting, but they are disciplines by themselves. But you can read tarot finding these kind of associations of these disciplines in the cards. And I was talking about numerology in specific and the concept of constellations in tarot. So constellations means that you group, as if in a constellation or a cluster, as I prefer to call it. All of the cards, and numerologically speaking, belong to the same. So, for example, the Lover's card will be grouped with all of the sixes, because it's the number 6. But what you need to do is look at the Devil card, and because the Devil card is number 15, obviously you will have a number 6, because it's number 15 is 1 plus 5. So number 15, sorry. What happens is that when you look at the connection and the way in which the cards within a constellation influence each other, you will see that the Devil's card can be seen as a teacher to the Lover's card. And the concept is that the lovers in the economy of the hero's journey, they are way too immature in order to be able to actually do a proper choice, because the Lover's card talk about choice. And so they actually need to go and meet with the devil, and the devil will be a catalyst for the lovers to understand that that path of themselves they don't want to go down to, or they don't want to acknowledge, or they want to push away from them, and sometimes even separate themselves from that darkness, that actually is the part that will teach them how to grow. And I really love this concept. And I'm trying to, it's because I have been pulling the devil's card so many times, in particular when I pull it with an oracle card that says knowledge. I cannot just pretend that it's not there. I cannot just pretend that it's not telling me it's something that is not talking to me. And I really do like this card. So the devil card from the Way Seeker's Tarot is a really beautiful card. Very unique in a sense that it shows you this level that is not looking at you like in the majority of decks. It's actually turning his back to you, and it is looking outwards. And it feels almost as if I think about Virgil in the Divine Comedy, just shining a light and then just make it leading the way. But this time, you don't have Virgil leading the way. You have a devil with all that card entails and it brings with it. So yes, there is an approach to darkness, and there is an approach to shame, perhaps, and there is an approach to what part of ourselves that we don't necessarily like. But at the same time, it gives me the possibility to focus on those things and almost exercise them, for want of a better word. And I do appreciate that, because if it's something that I have to do, there's no point in postponing it. And so I really want, for the next 6 months, I want to focus on this and see where it takes me. And maybe it will just confirm what I already know. But maybe it will tell me something new. And that'll be always really amazing. So that was the last prompt. As I said, there's a helicopter outside. I hope that it doesn't filter through the noise here. But in any case, thank you so much for being here and for watching this video. Always appreciate it. And I will see you the next time. Bye.